At the start of the 20th century, most of this Earth had been pretty well explored. But there was still one adventure left that a hardy group of explorers were willing to chase after, being the first team to reach the North Pole and being the first team to reach the South Pole. One of these ambitious explorers was the Norwegian Roald Amundsen. If you're Norwegian and watching this, I apologize if I butchered his name, but Roald was planning on reaching the North Pole when someone beat him to it. So he turned his sights to being the first team to reach the South Pole, which was much more challenging than reaching the North, as temperatures were much lower in the South Pole. The seas around Antarctica were known for being some of the roughest in the world. But Roald wasn't daunted by this. He interviewed everyone he knew who had sailed in the seas around Antarctica, learning everything he could from them. He also interviewed individuals who had made landfall on the continent, who had traveled, and learned from them as well. And he took all of that information and started preparing for the journey. He made sure that he was well supplied. He went out of his way to find the best equipment, whether it was clothes to make sure they were protected from the cold, to find dog teams that were acclimated to extremely cold weather. He meticulously planned out where they were going to set up stores of supplies ahead of their journey so that they could travel light, so that they wouldn't have to worry about food or equipment or resources. They would always be stocked on the way there and on the way back. And Roald was successful. He led his team to the South Pole and led the team all the way back without any serious mishap. Everyone on the team survived. There were no serious health complications. He came back and was hailed as a hero. Now, there was another explorer who was racing Roald to the South Pole. It was a British man by the name of Robert Scott. Scott certainly didn't lack for courage or bravery for taking on this difficult journey, but he did lack in attention to the details. Unlike Roald, Scott didn't pay as much attention to the equipment they were bringing. So when the men got there, they were ill-prepared for the harsh and cold weather. As far as transportation, Scott invested in some new motorized vehicles and some horses that were not acclimatized to the cold. The horses didn't last long in the cold, and his vehicles broke down or were lost in the ice, and they had to trek on foot, carrying most of their supplies with them. Unlike Roald's team, they didn't stock depots along the way, so they were constantly running out of supplies. And to make matters worse, Scott had brought on a fifth person onto the journey at the last minute, even though they only had enough supplies for 4 men. Scott's team did reach the South Pole, granted after Roald had reached it first, but on the return journey, the team was malnourished, they were low on supplies, and unfortunately, all 5 of them ultimately passed away on the return trek. 2 teams, 2 leaders who were certainly not lacking for courage, were certainly not lacking in audacity and bravery. But what made the difference between Roald's expedition that was successful and Scott's expedition, which resulted in the death of all of his team, was attention to the details. Whether you're leading your own business, whether you're leading a team, or whether you're leading an organization, attention to the details is critical. I was in the finance industry, and during my time there, keeping track of my numbers was a crucial part of my practice. I had to keep track of how many referrals I was bringing in, how many new people I was reaching out to, how many meetings I was setting every week. And I needed to do that because if I wasn't paying attention to the details, I would have no idea how my practice was doing. I would have no idea where I would need to improve. I would have no idea what was going well and I needed to keep doing. And ultimately, I would be lost. But when I had the numbers in front of me and I kept track of them, I could tell right away what I needed to improve. Okay, I was low on getting referrals. What can I do to fix that? Okay, I was low on setting new meetings. What can I do to fix that? And it helps target those areas where I'm struggling and I'm able to overcome them. Ultimately, whether we succeed or fail as a leader, a lot of times it's in the details. The details can be the deal breaker between success and failure, much as they were between Roald's expedition and Scott's expedition. So if you're a leader, focus on the details and they will start to lead you to the result that you want.